and good afternoon in Salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for joining us. I'm Muhammad Amin Carlos and you're watching Updates at Noon. Our headlines. Well, Economy Ministry to discuss rising food prices. Well, engagement sessions held with all stakeholders for SOSMA review. Well, the Economy Ministry will soon hold discussions with representatives from restaurant operators and food traders on steps that could be taken together in order to deal with the issue of rising food prices. Well, explaining further, Minister Rafizi Ramli said he is aware of the challenges restaurant operators face with other cost increases, such as labour costs from the implementation of 1,500 ringgit minimum wage. He added that the Department of Statistics Malaysia inflation statistics showed slight improvement from 4% in November last year to 3.8% last month, except for one subsector, which is the restaurant and hotel category. He stressed that efforts to curb inflation require all parties to work together. Rafizi also said the government is looking into several measures to help traders and restaurant operators deal with the cost increases they had to bear. Now, this includes the widening of part-time or gig workforce in the restaurants and eatery sectors. He noted that the gig workforce is part of the efforts to align the job market with the demands of the economic sector, which also falls under the efforts to restructure the national economy. Now, the minister also vowed to increase user access to information on prices of food and goods to help consumers decide whether they can get their products at a reasonable price. Well, engagement sessions with all stakeholders to review the provisions of the Security Offences Special Measures Act 2012, or SOSMA, are ongoing. The Home Minister, Datuk Seri Saifuddin Nasution Ismail, said several sessions had been held with stakeholders involving the Prime Minister's Department of Law and Institutional Reform, civil societies and individuals. Datuk Seri Saifuddin Nasution said the details of the meetings would only be made public after a consensus had been reached.
Engagement meetings, there are a series of meetings, but what is important is that what will be the outcome of those meetings. As per last announcement made by my colleague, the Deputy Minister Ram Kapal Singh, we are committed to engage all the stakeholders, including the civil societies or distinguished individuals who are involved on this topic.
In December last year, the ministry agreed to begin engagement sessions with stakeholders to review the provisions of SOSMA. Deputy Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Law and Institutional Reform, Ram Kapal Singh, said a review of the Act was needed to tackle aspects that had received criticism, including limiting the provision of bail. The Cambodian authorities have requested that any information about Malaysians who have fallen victim to job scam syndicates in the country be only channeled to the Malaysian embassy there or the Royal Malaysia Police, or PDRM, to facilitate rescue work. Bukit Aman Criminal Investigation Department Director Datuk Seri Abdul Jalil Hassan said any information channeled by non-governmental organizations to the Cambodian authorities will not be entertained, as it was feared to interfere with rescue efforts. Well, he explained that through discussions with the Cambodian authorities, it was found that the information provided by the NGO had interfered with the rescue process because the victims had been taken into hiding by the syndicate.
Pihak Kempucha memohon segala maklumat menyelamatkan mangsa hendaklah disalurkan melalui Kedutaan Malaysia atau PDRM kepada pihak berkuasa Kempucha. Maklumat yang disalurkan oleh pihak lain seperti pertubuhan bukan kerajaan tidak akan dilayan sama sekali.
Dato Sri Abdul Jalil said the agreement was reached following discussions between the Cambodian authorities and a delegation from the PDRM and Ministry of Foreign Affairs to Cambodia, led by him. Well, meanwhile, 5 more Malaysian citizens who were victims of a job scam syndicate in Cambodia arrived at the Kuala Lumpur International Airport yesterday. Now, the victims were accompanied by a senior Foreign Affairs Ministry officer, as well as a delegation of the PDRM who were on a working visit to the Cambodia starting Tuesday. And according to Dato Sri Abdul Jalil, the victims were saved as a result of negotiations with the Cambodian authorities.
Mengikut pautan undang-undang yang sebenarnya terpaksa menunggu sebulan, sekurang-kurang cepat sebulan, tapi mereka dapat meluluskan keluarkan daripada tahanan selama tak lebih pada 24 jam. Ini adalah hasil kerjasama yang baik, hubungan yang baik antara Kementerian Luar Negara Malaysia dengan Kementerian Luar Negara Kampuchea, antara Polis Malaysia dan Polis Kampuchea.
And with the return of the 5 victims, the Foreign Affairs Ministry has so far brought home a total of 346 Malaysian citizens who were victims of job scam syndicates in Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar and Thailand. The ministry advised the public to be mindful of high salaried overseas job offers from dubious sources, including through social media, mobile apps or online. The Immigration Department busted a syndicate supplying foreign workers with fake temporary employment visit pass, masterminded by 2 Bangladeshis in 4 raids in Klang on Thursday. Immigration Director General Dato Sri Khairul Zaimi Daud said the syndicate has been operating for 8 months and earned around 880,000 ringgit. Dato Sri Khairul Zaimi said the syndicate was targeting foreigners with no valid passes or travel documents to be supplied to companies in need of foreign workers. Well, he said the syndicate would charge the foreigners between 5,000 and 6,000 ringgit each to obtain the temporary employment visit pass stickers. Well, during the raids, 6 men, including 5 Bangladeshi nationals and a local woman who is married to one of the suspects, were arrested. Well, according to Dato Sri Khairul Zaimi, the couple had set up a construction company to hide their illegal activities from authorities.
Turut dirampas di dalam operasi ini ialah 62 pasport pelbagai negara serta 17 pasport Bangladesh yang telah dipalsukan. Di samping itu, pasukan operasi juga turut menahan dan merampas sebuah kenderaan jenis Toyota Hilux yang bernilai RM120,000. Kesemua mereka yang ditahan ini berumur di antara 28 ke 50 tahun.
Well, Malaysia's passenger traffic across all local networks of airports operated by Malaysia Airports Holdings Berhad or MAHB gained momentum in 2022, registering 52.7 million passenger movements. While this is a substantial increase as compared to 10.72 million passenger movements in 2021. Now, MAHB in a statement said the annual growth in passenger movements was supported by the introduction of new routes by 27 airlines to 38 cities, and overall 59 airlines operated flights to 84 international and 35 domestic destinations last year, as compared to 48 airlines to 51 international and 32 domestic destinations in the preceding year. Well, on a monthly basis, the airport operators said the highest monthly passenger movements for 2022 were recorded in December, totaling 6.8 million passengers, with the year-end holiday season contributing to the significant 31% increase from the preceding month and enabled the group to reach 50% of 2019 levels for Malaysia operations. Well, among the 5 international airports, Langkawi International Airport and Kota Kinabalu International Airport recorded the highest passenger increase at 51% and 39% respectively. Well, there is no imposition of fees for members of the Federal Territories Sharia Bar Council under Sections 23, 24 and 29 and also 31 of the Sharia Legal Profession Act 2019, also known as Act 814 for this year. Now, Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Religious Affairs, Dr. Muhammad Naim Mokhtar, said this was because further study on the fees is still ongoing and no decision had been made. Now, in a statement, Dr. Muhammad Naim said for 2024 and beyond, the matter will be decided after the further study is completed and discussions with stakeholders are held. Act 814, which came into effect on 21st June last year, provides for fees and charges that may be imposed on Federal Territories Sharia Bar Council members. Now, this includes the annual fees and charges under Section 47 and Act 814 payable to the Sharia Bar Council and various other fees under Sections 23, 24, 29 and 31 of the same Act payable to the Chief Registrar. In our foreign front, at least 2 dead and 2 missing in Auckland flooding.
The number of malicious and false statements spread by SMS or social media platforms have become too widespread. The public is advised to be careful and not fall for such ploys and sharing or forwarding such messages. Remember that spreading fake news is an offence under Section 233 of the Communications and Multimedia Act 1998. This carries a penalty of a fine not exceeding 50,000 ringgit or up to 1 year imprisonment or both upon conviction.
On to the foreign news. Now, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim received a congratulatory message from United States President Joe Biden, who also commended Malaysia's inspiring democracy in the 15th general election last November. Now, elaborating further, Datuk Seri Anwar said the US President also expressed commitment to deepen its relations with Malaysia, including in the areas of digital economy, climate crisis and energy security. The Premier said he is looking forward to working closely with Biden for the mutual benefit of the people. Now, Biden, in his note dated 24th January, said as democracies around the world face unprecedented challenges, Malaysia's election demonstrated that democracies can deliver. Biden also pointed out that the relationship between both countries was built on a strong foundation of the ever-growing economy, security, and people-to-people ties, which have also helped strengthen freedom, security, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific. Well, in the years ahead, Biden looks forward to deepening the partnership even further, including working together to build inclusive economic growth and resilient supply chains through the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. And our foreign headline story in full. Torrential rain in Auckland left at least 2 dead and 2 missing following widespread flooding across New Zealand's largest city. Now, police said the bodies of 2 men were found in floodwaters in 2 separate incidents in a northern suburb. Now, the flooding also swept a man away in a community south of Auckland, and another person is unaccounted for after a landslide brought down a house in the city centre. Emergency services were swamped for calls for help as civil defence officials warned residents to stay home. Auckland residents have been urged to only contact emergency services if facing life-threatening danger. A new Prime Minister, Chris Hipkins, said the National Crisis Management Centre, housed under the Parliament building in the capital, Wellington, was helping to coordinate the emergency response. But the flash flooding turned many of Auckland's roads into rivers yesterday, and the wild weather closed the city's airport, which is the country's largest, with ankle-deep water in some terminals. Well, a state of emergency remained in place in the city of around 1.6 million people on New Zealand's North Island as the rains eased after causing flooding in the north, northwest and west. The nation's weather forecaster said while heavy rain had eased, another period of downpours is possible on Sunday. Well, Poland will send an additional 60 tanks to Ukraine on top of the 14 German-made Leopard 2 tanks it has already pledged. The additional tanks include 30 famous PT-91 Twardy and 14 Leopards. Now, the PT-91 is a Polish-made battle tank that came into service in the 1990s and was developed from the Soviet-era T-72 range. In April last year, 2 months after Russia invaded Ukraine, Poland said it had sent tanks to help Kyiv fend off the assault. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky thanked Poland on Twitter for the decision to supply the additional tanks. Warsaw, which has positioned itself as one of Kyiv's staunchest allies, had pressed hard for Germany to send Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine and to allow other countries to do so as well, a demand which Berlin agreed to on Wednesday. Ukraine has also been promised battle tanks from the U.S., announced earlier this week. Canada Thursday announced that it would send 4 Leopard 2 battle tanks to Ukraine. Norway has also said it will send Leopards, while Spain said it was open to providing them. Ukraine has said it needs hundreds of the Leopards to drive Russia from its territory. Peru's embattled President Dina Boluarte has urged Congress to advance elections slated for April 2024 to December this year as protests that have killed dozens rage on against her leadership. Peru has been embroiled in a political crisis with near-daily protests since 7 December when former President Pedro Castillo was arrested after attempting to dissolve Congress and rule by decree. While demanding that Boluarte resign and call fresh elections, Castillo supporters have erected roadblocks on highways, causing shortages of food, fuel and other basic supplies in the South American country. The government said it will soon deploy police and soldiers to clear the roadblocks. Now, lawmakers had already voted on 21st December in favor of a Boluarte bill to bring forward elections from 2026 to 2024. But in the face of relentless protests, Boluarte urged Congress to call the vote for December.
Desde el Ejecutivo habíamos planteado para que estas elecciones se adelanten a abril del 2024. Proyecto que en el Congreso se votó una primera vez y se está esperando la votación de la segunda vez. Sin embargo, las marchas de protesta continúan, hay más bloqueos, hay más violencia y violencia.
Kudos to Faisal Halim for making the 2022 AFF Cup All-Star 11 lineup. That and more in sports. Kedah Darul Aman Football Club, KDAFC, has announced their new import Brazilian striker Jonathan Boareto dos Reis to fill in the quota for international players for the 2023 season. Well, a 33-year-old will be joining forces with another Brazilian, William Lera, who has been in stellar form with 4 goals for KDAFC across 3 pre-season action. Well, Jonathan, who has received the nickname Jonathan Balotelli before this, was with Jeonnam Dragons in the South Korean Second League, and he helped them lift the South Korean FA Cup last year. KDAFC, in announcing the matter on their official website, also said Balo will be donning the jersey number 89. Balotelli's skills has garnered the attention of KDAFC manager Nafuzi Zain, who is searching for a striker who can hunt for goals if other strikers such as William are injured. With Jeonnam Dragons, Balotelli has scored 20 goals and provided 7 assists throughout his 62 appearances in the K-League 2. Harimau Malaya captain Muhammad Faisal Abdul Halim is the sole Malaysian player to make it into the 2022 ASEAN Football Federation or AFF Cup All-Star 11 or the best starting 11 lineup. Now, the Selangor FC winger also found himself named as one of the top 3 strikers. Well, according to a posting on the official AFF Cup Facebook page, the other 2 strikers, Thailand's Terasil Dangda and Vietnam's Nguyen Thien Linh, also shared the top scorers award with 6 goals each. Vietnam's Dang Van Lam was named the best goalkeeper, while Kritsada Kaman, Sasalak Haprakhon, both from Thailand, Jordi Ahmad from Indonesia, and Doan Van Hau from Vietnam were named best defenders. And as for midfielders, the top 3 were Thai skipper Therathon Bunmantan and teammate Sarach Yuyen, as well as Vietnam's Nguyen Hong Duc. Now, for the record, the 2022 AFF Cup All-Stars 11 list is based on fan votes. Everton are expected to name former Burnley boss Sean Dyche as their new manager, as reported by British media yesterday. Now, the 51-year-old Dyche is being lined up as the successor to Frank Lampard, who was sacked earlier this week after a poor run of form left the team in a relegation battle. Now, the Merseysiders had been floundering under the former England international, having last won a Premier League game in October. Lampard's last game in charge was last week's 2-0 league defeat at West Ham United, which kept Everton second bottom of the table on 15 points after 20 games. Now, Dyche has been out of work since last April when he was sacked by Burnley, where he transformed the fortunes of the Lancashire club during his nearly 10 years in charge. He was the longest-serving English top-flight manager when he was relieved of his duties as Burnley headed towards relegation last season. Now, during Dyche's tenure, Burnley were promoted twice from the Championship, achieved 2 top-half Premier League finishes, and qualified for Europe for the first time in 51 years. In tennis, Novak Djokovic shrugged off controversy, including his father, to reach a record-extending 10th Australian Open final with a 7-5, 6-1, 6-2 win over outgunned American Tommy Paul yesterday. A 9-time champion, Djokovic will meet 3rd seed Stefanos Tsitsipas in tomorrow's decider after the Greek booked his first final at Melbourne Park by beating Russian Karen Khachanov in the earlier semi-final. Now, Serbian Djokovic's father... Well, that concludes today's edition of Updates at Noon. In our top story, Economy Ministry to discuss rising food prices. Do tune in to News at 10 coming up later tonight on saluran Berita RTM. Before we leave, well, take a look at these 6 elderly penguin chicks at the Guadalajara Zoo in Mexico. And Guadalajara Zoo is one of the few that caters to this Antarctic species. I'm in Carlos. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.